Hey guys, it's Miss C. Just wanted to film and upload a quick follow-up video that goes into a bit more detail about the book report project, the cereal box book report project. I told you guys on Friday yesterday that I would be filming the sort of tutorial or the how-to when it comes to your projects this weekend, and this is the one I started with. So I recorded a time-lapse video where I showed you guys the process of creating this project myself. I made one myself. To just kind of give you guys some hints and pointers and sort of show you what it is that I'm expecting from you in this specific project. So I'm just going to walk you through. I tried to approach this project as if I were a student and asked myself, what is Miss C asking for? If I was in her classroom, what does she need to see from me in order for this to be a successful project? And so one thing I did was I went into my Google Classroom and I wrote out for myself a list of the requirements that I posted several weeks ago. Up until this point, you guys have simply been writing logs after you read every chapter of your book, but as you're coming nearer to this time where you're going to actually create your projects, you're going to want to start putting together all of this information using the mini lessons that I've been posting throughout the week. So we had one on character traits, we had one on setting, we had one on conflict resolution, we had another one on theme just last week, and so all of those mini lessons that I've been posting are going to, I've been saying, would help prepare you for all of this. If you have a printer at home and you're able to print these instructions, I would definitely recommend that. I do have a printer, but it's such a hassle to print and connect to it and whatever, so I just wrote it out for myself. But if you print it, it's a lot better just because it goes into more detail. You don't have to write out all the directions like I did. I just gave myself a basic thing to go off of. So I'll show you what I have here. So my book report requirements, I made sure that I wrote that Miss C is expecting a front cover illustration, a spine, a character profile, a three-box sequence that shows the conflict and resolution of the story, and then a summary. Like I said, there's more details about each of these in Google Classroom, so if you can print it, perfect. And if not, just make sure that you're going in and checking, double checking that you're hitting exactly the requirements for each of these things. The next thing I did is that I went through, I used a ruler to measure the dimensions of my cereal box, and I wrote them down for myself. So this is helpful because once you start mapping out the parts of your book report, you're going to want to know how much space you have to work with. For example, I'll go into this a little later, but you can see that my summary took up a huge chunk of my back cover. So my character profile then had to be really skinny. Knowing the dimensions before you start is going to help you to plan out the appropriate size for each component of the book report, okay? So that's another tip for you. I wrote out my dimensions, and then what I did is I just made sure that every portion of the book report was slightly smaller than the dimensions I wrote. For example, the spine, this is 3 inches in width like this, so I reduced it down to about 2.5 inches for this so that it wouldn't be right along the edge. I think it was 2.75 actually what I did. Same with this. You can see that it doesn't line up exactly right here, which is good. We don't want it to line up exactly, otherwise it's going to be really crowded and hard, okay? Hard to fit everything. So then the next thing I did is I started each actual component of the book report. So I started with the front cover illustration. So in my notes in Google Classroom, I asked that your book report cover somehow illustrate an important part of the book, making sure that you include your main character. So what I did is I drew the forest, the lake, the airplane wing sticking out of the lake. Hopefully that's what that looks like. There is Brian looking out into the lake. He's got his hatchet and he has a fire. So I already, just by looking at the front cover of this book report, as someone just looking at it knows that this story is most likely about a boy, something to do with a hatchet. He's outdoors in a foresty type of setting, and then I as a reader am like, huh, what's that? And hopefully you do a great job of illustrating something in a way that the reader is able to kind of create predictions and ideas of what this is about, okay? So that's my front cover. And I think in my notes in Google Classroom, I said that I wanted it to have the name and then I wanted your name somewhere in the front cover, but I forgot until I was doing the spine, and then so I just put it on the spine. So if you did that, I'm fine with that too. As long as your name is on here somewhere, I'm cool with whatever you decide to do. So this is now the spine. Moving on to the spine of the book, which is the next requirement on my card. And here again, I just did the name of the book. I did the author Gary Paulsen, and then this is where I put my name, Book Report by Maria Cisneros. And then again, I just added elements of the book. This hatchet is kind of sprinkled throughout my book report in little places just as a filler to kind of fill empty spots, because there's nothing worse, you guys, than looking at a book report or at any project and seeing a bunch of empty white space. You definitely don't want that. And that's not just me telling you that. That's every other teacher in your life that you'll have hates seeing just big open spots. You want to really make sure that you're putting in all of the time and effort to really make it nice and full, because when you look at a book, that's not what books look, you know, books don't look like that. Here's an example. I have this little book on my desk, so you can see that they didn't just put her face in the writing here, they added a border. The spine has like a little flower. It's not super basic. That the back also has like little fillers, so there's not just like one piece of information and the rest is green. It has like little filler things to make it just look prettier and more complete. Complete, I guess, is what I'm looking for. I don't want it to look like you just hurried up and did it and scrambled to finish it, okay? Okay, so that's my cover. That is my spine. On the other side of my book, where the pages would be, I just did this little like fakey page looking sort of thing. And I did the same on the top and on the bottom. Okay. And then, so now the meat and potatoes, the most important part of your book report is the back cover. This is where I'm really looking to see if you went through those mini lessons, if you used your brain to really think back to when we were in school and we would talk about every book that we read together, every story we read together, every text we read together, every passage we read together. We were constantly practicing these skills. So these skills should be coming to you pretty easily without my mini lessons. But for those of you who kind of were still stuck in spring break mode and kind of lost some of that stuff, that's why I created those slideshows to help you remember. For the summary portion, here's my summary. And in the description on Google Classroom, I think I said that I wanted it to be 5 to 7 sentences. I might have said 7 to 10, I don't remember. But as long as they're really good, rich, detailed sentences, I'm cool with 5. I tell you guys that in class as well. As long as you're giving me really beautiful, well-written, detailed sentences, 5 is a good number. That's a good place for a paragraph to be, okay? I'll read you my summary just so you can get an idea of what it is that I'm looking for, okay? So this is the summary that I wrote for Hatchet. It says, Brian Robeson is 13 years old when his plane crashes in the Canadian wilderness. He is forced to fend for himself with nothing but the clothes on his back and a small hatchet. After learning many hard lessons about survival, Brian begins to learn how to thrive in his surroundings. Right before the harsh winter hits, Brian is able to retrieve the survival pack from the plane. Inside, he finds a transmitter, which leads to his rescue. So normally in the back of a book, the synopsis won't give away the ending. There's no spoilers. But for this project, I want the spoiler. I want a beginning, middle, and end as your teacher grading your summary. Remember, good summaries include important details, a beginning, middle, and end, without giving details that aren't super, super important to the overall huge, big picture. So for example, if I would have said something about the porcupine attack, where that porcupine went into his little shelter and attacked him that night, that did happen in the book, and that was an important part of the book because Brian learned a lesson from that. He learned that nature is wild and unpredictable, and even when he was feeling really good about himself, he had collected all these berries, and he had this shelter, and he was feeling like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good, surviving. Boom, anything can happen, and it did. The porcupine went in and attacked him, and then he wasn't able to move or walk around for a couple days, I think. So, yes, that's an important part of the book. Yes, it taught him a lesson, but in the overall big picture of this book, the summary shouldn't include anything about the porcupine. I kept it very vague. So my way of saying that is by saying, after learning many hard lessons about survival. So instead of going into those little details, you keep it pretty broad in a summary, okay? And you guys know this. We've talked about this many times. Next, I'm going to talk about the physical traits. So my physical traits I put here. My character traits I put here. Here's my physical, and here is my personality traits. And so I'll start with the physical traits. And these are interesting and maybe tricky for some of us because in books, when you're reading a novel, the author doesn't typically take the time to write a paragraph or two or a page about what this character looks like. They will describe things about the character kind of sprinkled throughout the book, and it's your job as a reader to grab onto those and start putting them in your mind and creating this picture of this character inside of your head. Okay, the author's never going to say straight out, okay, reader, here's what this character looks like. Get ready to imagine them. Tall, dark, this, handsome, long hair, blah. It doesn't work like that. You as the reader have to go through and pick up on things. For example, if it says, if the book says something like, oh, she put her long hair in a ponytail and left for football practice or whatever. You now have learned that this character has long hair. And so it's your job to pick up on those little clues, and that's how you start building that idea in your head. So throughout the reading of Hatchet, some of the things we learned about Brian were that he was tall, he was thin, he was an average build. He wasn't a big, strong, big guy. He wasn't a really little, weak guy either. He was average, and he was male. So those are some of the characteristics that I wrote for him physically. Personality-wise, same thing. The author's never going to sit down and make a list of character traits for you and say, okay, guys, Harry Potter is brave, he's smart, he's loyal, he's this, he's that. They don't do that. It is your job as a reader to read between the lines and figure those things out for yourself based on the character's actions. So, for example, for Brian, I wrote he is resilient, which means he doesn't give up. He keeps getting back up and trying again, no matter how many bad things happen to him. He's brave. He's creative. He's fast learner. I'm going to talk about bravery. So, for example, in the book, nowhere does Gary Paulson, the author, say Brian was brave. But we as the reader can pick up on the fact that Brian is brave and decide that for ourselves because of his actions. For example, whenever there's that huge storm and everything gets whipped around and the ocean or the lake is churning and all these waves are crashing, and then the next day everything has settled, Brian wakes up and he notices that the airplane wing is sticking out of the lake. And so now he's like, ooh, I can go, if I can build a raft and get close enough to this plane, I can try to get in there and grab that survival pack. And I bet there's food in there. I bet there's things in there that can help me. And so if he wasn't brave, he would have been like, yeah, no, what if it falls down? What if I get stuck in there and I drown? What if, something stings me? What if I fail? He wasn't like that. He went for it because he was brave, and his bravery built as this story went on because of all the hard lessons he learned. So you learn these things about the characters kind of the same way you learn things about people as you get to know them. So like when you meet a new friend, you don't know them right away. I don't know about you guys, but when I make a new friend, I don't say that, okay, friend, tell me everything about you. Tell me all of your personality traits. That's not how you get to know people. You get to know people by hanging out with them, and you notice them doing things, and then you build your idea of who they are as a person. For example, if you go to the store with a new friend and there's someone, who's maybe short 15 cents in line in front of you guys, and your friend says, oh, here, I got you. Here's 15 cents. It's cool. I got you. You now are like, oh, in your head, you're like, oh, this person is generous. They are a good person. They're giving. They're a good friend. You start to build these ideas on your own based on this person's actions. Okay. So there are my character traits. And then finally, the last part it's the 3-box sequence that shows conflict resolution. So, Lily, I think Lily was the one, hey Lily, who asked me a while back. She said, Missy, what's a 3-box sequence? So we've done this in class, just not in a 3-box sequence. And it's super simple. It's nothing terribly difficult. It's basically first, then last. What happened first, what happened next, what happened last. And within this, you will always find the conflict and the resolution. So for mine, I wrote, first, Brian's parents got a divorce. I can't read backwards and upside down. First, Brian's parents get a divorce, and Brian goes to visit his dad. So there's my little airplane, him flying. Then, and this is where, boom, 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 I identify the conflict. Brian's plane crashes, and he's forced to survive in the wilderness. And there's my illustration of a moose, because if you remember, he was attacked by a moose at one point. And then finally, last, Brian is rescued when he sets off, that was supposed to say off, I forgot an F there, I'll fix it in a minute. When he sets off the transmitter, that's the resolution. So he gets rescued. That's how this problem gets solved. He's stuck in the wilderness, has to survive in the wild. His plane crashed. He gets rescued. That's the resolution. So first, then last. conflict resolution. Okay. Again, all of these things are in Google Classroom, all these mini lessons that review all of these things. All of the instructions are on Google Classroom. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I will give you a couple of pointers. My very big first thing I want you guys to remember is to please, please, please work with what you have. Okay, don't get frustrated because you're missing certain things. It can be different. You don't have to use the same things I use. If you don't have a cereal box, find a different box. If you don't have, like I don't have it here now, but I used a big piece of like cardstock almost type of paper, like some drawing paper that we had, to cut out all of my little pieces. And this was actually an index card. So those are the things I had available. If you only have lined paper or printer paper, use that. Perfect example, my glue. I have like barely any glue. I don't know if you guys noticed this when you watch the time-lapse video, but I'm like constantly shaking this because it's running super low. So perfect example of just working with what you have, just in case I had a backup. I had a stapler and tape, which luckily I didn't have to use because I don't even know how I would have used a stapler for this. But anyway, work with what you have, you guys. Don't get frustrated. Another perfect example is what the book is wrapped with. So we usually have a ton of paper bags at the house, and we keep them nicely organized so when we need to use one again, they're in good shape. And I guess we've been using them a whole lot lately because we only had one left and it was really wrinkly. And so I was really frustrated when I was wrapping this box with it because it was sticking out, and now all of my the way that I had to fold it to make it work now is making my pieces kind of stick out. So my plan is to tonight lay some heavy things on top of it and kind of pressed against it so that it makes it nice and flat, and hopefully that helps it really stick and be good to go by Monday. But if not, I did my best. I filled in every spot I could. Now, could I add more on the back here in these empty spots? Yeah, absolutely. I would add things like maybe I would make this an ocean, or a lake. I'm sorry, I keep saying ocean. A lake, and put some fish in here or something that has to do with the setting of the book. That's what my instructions said. So I didn't do that, but that's something that I would love for you guys to do, is if you just notice any empty spots, be creative and get some fillers in there, like this book I showed you guys. It's got these nice like ornate borders and little things to kind of fill in the space. Same for your book report, okay? So anyway, that is all I have for you guys with this. Tomorrow I'm planning to film the second video that shows the other book report, the mobile, and with the toilet paper rolls. So that one I'll model for you guys tomorrow in a video and post that. So Saturday, Sunday, by Monday, hopefully, when we meet, you guys have had a chance to look at these videos, and if you have any questions, write them down or email me, and we can discuss them during our meet on Monday, okay? All right, guys, good luck, and I will talk to you very soon.